Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no... Damn, this music is so
really
loud. Where there are no outside issues. My name's Anthony. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. I hope I can hear after this. I care about you.
Yes.
That she caught me by the surprise.
I know exactly. And I'm LouiLou. My pronouns are he and him. I'm recovered for crystal meth and alcohol, and I am always in search of balance.
Balance.
Yes, and each week we strive to foster a brave space where we can engage in conversations centered around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues sometimes used to separate us.
Yes, but before we do that, please like, share, comment, and ding that bell, and rate this episode if you can. But only if you rating it right.
Just rate it if you're going to give us all the stars. Otherwise, keep your shit to yourself.
Oh.
And now the disclaimer. The thoughts and opinions expressed on At the CCC are ours alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. The information shared here is for general information purposes only. In other words, we're just a couple of friends behind a mic here to entertain you.
Absolutely.
Listen, if you have feedback for us, send us a private email. You ain't
Yes.
got to put that all public like that. That's really messy. Especially since there's like a direct contact that you guys have to us. Don't you agree? Like, why would be like, I wish Lewis would shut up. You know, like they should just send that to us privately.
You can send that. Well, okay. You're watching a podcast where I'm supposed to be talking and you want me to shut up. Okay, go ahead. Knock yourself
And
out.
that's why that's why they should send it to us
I
privately.
think what that was secret wishes, Anthony's greatest wish.
No.
Just sit here and let me talk. No.
That's not true.
So how are you doing?
Well, first off, I missed you.
I know I missed
I
you
really
too.
missed you. For those who are listening, our camera just turned off. So those listening, we filmed live at the Western Roundup Living Sober Conference. It was a very good time. We had a packed room, a lot of lively, interesting conversation. We didn't film it live.
Uh-huh.
So if you're interested in that, you'll have to catch it wherever you listen to podcast. Excuse me. And Lewis wasn't able to be there because he was ill.
I know last week I phoned in remotely because I was COVID got me real good.
COVID got you real good.
Uh-huh.
So that happened. And so I really missed having you there. It didn't feel the same without you. But yeah, I'm good. It's been really warm in San Francisco.
Oh, yes.
It's been really warm, but warm here is like 70s, 80s.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, this is summer.
It is summer. It is summer.
Uh-huh.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, I'm getting my energy back slowly. I mean, honestly, it was expected, but I've been back at work and I know.
We're laughing because we're filming live now, but our camera isn't working.
The camera's not working.
But we can see Anke, and that's all that
look
matters.
at- see, look
Is it?
at-
But now the settings are all off, so now
settings
it's super far away.
I know, so it's super cool. Hey, so
There we go.
I was really excited to listen to. I did get a chance to listen to the Sunday, and you did a wonderful job. It's
Thank you.
I mean, for because on the fly, I think that a lot of what we do has been kind of like, off the cuff, and so it was really cool. And I don't know, it's just cool. I wish that we had planned, and maybe in the future we'll know to plan so that if that happens again for either of us, I can chime in remotely. But I just want anybody who's listening to know that Anthony, I don't mind that you were able to use me as a way to
Lewis was my safe word. So whenever I got uncomfortable, I would blame Lewis. Anke, we know that you're there. We will bring you in a second. I just see you there. So lovely. So we have Anke on today. Anke's been on before. She's been one of our like most faithful fans, and she's become like a fan favorite. So we're really happy to have her on.
Anke is just part of the family.
She truly is. Anke, how was your week?
Well, like Lewis, I was sick. I was home with COVID, and I've definitely turned a corner. I was lucky that I got the antiviral meds pretty quickly.
Paxlovid?
Yeah. So I'm better, and I'm grateful that I survived it. It's no joke, really.
No,
It really isn't.
No fun.
And if folks are listening, yes, I am eating.
Hey, it's like
I
they're
didn't
like
have-
surprise.
And then I wanna do this for some ASMR.
And also, I didn't get a chance to say.
We have new shirts.
We have new shirts, and they say
At the CCC.
They say at the
Logo.
CCC they got our logo, and then on the back it's like there are no outside issues, so it's really cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So shall we introduce today's topic?
Let's talk about it.
So this is the relationships month.
Yes,
And we brought Anke on to talk about work relationships, right?
We're waiting for the banner.
We're waiting. Oh.
No, you know what? Stephen is taking a much needed rest. He's away, and so our
Our executive producer.
Our executive producer, Brandon, is back behind there, and he's basically told us, you should be happy I showed up. I need to get some love because our team keeps building. So we've got Jordan back there. Jordan is amazing, and Jordan's going to be joining us next week. And then
we also have Jason.
We have Jason, who's not new to the CCC family, but definitely new to being involved with the podcast. We're excited.
And so we share all of that to say, if you're interested in being involved, reach out.
Please do.
We have so many rules. Our team keeps, sorry, I have food in my mouth, but y'all know how it is.
Again, it's like I'm all shocked, surprised, and awe.
Sometimes you should keep it to yourself. But
like you're chewing,
But so I think
pot, meat, kettle.
What I was trying to get at is like our team keeps it keeps growing, and there's so many different things that we could use help with.
I know, it's fascinating because there's things that we probably don't know that we need help with. So if you've got some expertise in this area and you just want to have fun and hang out with two cool dudes.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
They're all shaking their heads like,
oh my God.
What a loser.
Two cool dudes. All right, let's jump in.
Absolutely.
So Louis, you've actually talked about work relationships the most.
A lot. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because I blame it on my Virgo nature, my misguided need to be perfection, to practice perfectionism, or whatever. And the struggle that I have is, that I can't just work by myself. I have to work with other people, and it has been a lesson in understanding that, just because somebody doesn't work the way that I work doesn't mean that they're not doing the best they can, or really doing a good job. Because it's like, of course, I just dismiss that if you're not working like I am, then you were just not a good employee, which is nonsense, but not really.
How about you, Anke?
I was thinking about work, obviously today, because I was at work this morning, and I was thinking about the topic. Work relationships obviously can be tricky. And what I was thinking too is if you have, if you're in the program, if you're in any kind of recovery, chances are you probably grew up in a dysfunctional family. And we take those roles that we played in our family. Some of us, we take that to work, right? We show up, like it or not, with trauma, with, baggage, with preconceived ideas, with biases. We bring all that to work, whether we like it or not, or whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it comes with us, right? So those things can play out in so many different ways, particularly if we're not aware of them, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking about today, and that's played out in my life and what that's been like for me. I'm an adult child, people pleaser, and those kinds of things have come back to bite me in the ass at work for obvious reasons, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking about today.
Yeah, I love your mentioning of family dynamics. So I do organizational consulting. So I work with executive leadership teams, and one of the things that I notice is that you see a lot of the family dynamics show up in people's relationship to authority, so to their boss. So often you'll notice people behave the way I would imagine that they behaved at home. So for example, it's some people have a relationship with their boss where like they need their attention and approval. Other people have like issues with authority, and so they will push on them, right? And then the other thing that comes to mind is like work identity. So a lot of people will go to work wanting different things. So some people will become overly identified with their job, right? And so if something goes wrong at work, they fall apart because that's their whole identity. You know, like, what does it mean if I'm not good at my job? What does it mean if I lose this job, right? And so sometimes people fall apart.
Another
in that
piece
way.
of this,
yeah.
like when you started talking about work identity, I was thinking about, and maybe there's a different way to term it, but you know how when you become that person, like if you are a person who's habitually late, or if you are a person that don't talk to that person because that person is chummy with the boss and probably like there is no place worse to be pigeonholed, to kind of and Anke, you brought it up, like there's some behaviors like in the beginning, and then I showed up and I really didn't know that I was exhibiting them, like maybe people pleasing or whatever. I thought that I was doing this spectacular job, but really what I was doing was not being a worker among worker, not really working effectively with others. And then by the time, and you even talked about it where you had a therapist that said about the people that you work with and they didn't like you.
Years ago. Yeah. Damn, you have a good memory.
No, and it talked about you had been one way, and in our minds, maybe we know, maybe we don't know, but I'm thinking I need to be this or whatever. And you become that way, and the damage is irreparable. Yeah. Like as much as you might try to show up in a different way, like specifically, like I'm really good about showing up for work on time. Yeah. But there were times in my active addiction where it apparently wasn't a priority, and so it had gotten so bad that people just expected it. And then when
you to be late,
and then when I started to get better or made an attempt to get better, they weren't buying it. Like, it didn't matter. It's kind of, yeah.
Anke, something coming up for you over there?
So I was thinking about something you said, Anthony, in a previous podcast about bringing your authentic self. Not necessarily, I don't think you were talking about work, but bringing your authentic self to one of your internships, I think.
Oh, yeah. We can come back to that.
You remember that? And I thought about that today too, and what that looks like. What does it look like to bring your authentic self to work? And is that even a thing? Like, is that even possible? Because, you know, if you're working in a corporate environment or if you're in a business, there are certain expectations of your colleague, by your colleagues or your bosses about how you're going to behave on the job, right?
Right.
So is that going to contradict your authentic self? And I kind of feel like that's kind of, you know, what I want to talk about a little bit more, and if that's even possible. Yeah. Right.
That's a good question. Like, is it possible? Well, is it possible to be authentic at work? And what did I use the word authentic?
You did.
You did.
I feel like the conversation was in conjunction to your feelings about being on the podcast.
No. Well, 100%. I mean, I can speak to that. So for people who may just be listening to this episode and didn't hear that one. So what I think about it, you know, I'll graduate. I'll be out of grad school next year. And so I'll be able to call myself officially. Thank you. I'll officially be a psychologist once I graduate. And that's I'll legally be able to call myself a psychologist.
I'm trying to get free therapy already.
And okay. So psychology and mental health can be a pretty conservative environment, depending on like the modality that people use or like the setting that they're in. And so for a very long time, I was trained to be as a blank slate. Right? That like you don't give patients or clients any information about you because it can interrupt or disrupt the care. Right? But that's just one way of operating, right? And what I think has been really helpful is like what I see in my friendships or what I've experienced in 12th Step and other situations. It's where like you bring yourself to the table, right? Like you bring yourself to the conversation, because then there isn't like a power dynamic, right? Like literally, like the way I try to think about things is, if we're talking about like being authentic, is like we're literally humans, like just on the earth. You know what I mean? And like what we do for work, in my opinion, is kind of like how we entertain ourselves before we die, you know? And so like, if if that's the way I'm seeing it, like if I'm seeing us like we're just humans kind of doing people together, that's a very different way of arriving in relationship than like I'm the authority, you're the patient. Right. And so that's what I was thinking about. So, but the last thing is about like being authentic is like, you know, we talk about like really racy things on here sometimes, or like things that are controversial. And sometimes I've thought about like, is this going to get me in trouble? You know what I mean? Am I going to foreclose on certain opportunities because of like the opinions I have or like the way I show up into the space? And where I've arrived with that is like, I don't want to work in an environment where this is problematic. Right. Yeah. So that's where I was coming from.
Yeah. Since I moved to the Bay Area, I have to say there's definitely been a culture shift. I spent most of my adult life in the East Coast working in healthcare, which is a very, very super conservative environment, run by like middle management is all women, and then upper management tends to be all male, right? Still, right? And so for me, the experience coming here, it was such a culture shock. And so on so many levels, but in a good way, because here there's number one, there's a lot more diversity. There's a lot more openness, and you can have conversations with people, difficult conversations with people, and have it not blow up and have it not like ruin your whole like work relationship and upset the apple cart at work like forever. Right. Yeah. So I feel like I'm much, I feel like I'm more grounded here for some reason at work.
Yeah.
It feels really good. And just in general, like out in the world here in the Bay Area, because there's so much diversity and acceptance, which that was not my experience working on the East Coast as much.
I hear that.
I was going to.
Oh, we have a comment.
We have a comment. Great.
Yeah. Ben Breeze. So, love you all so much. I've heard it described as threading the needle, showing up authentically and the true to yourself while also meeting the demands of the systems we work in. Ooh, can you say more about that, Ben?
Yeah, and I feel like it depends. Like, I think that we have to figure out with regards to work and how we show up for work, what it actually means to be authentic. Because, like, just because in my mind, I could be like thinking, oh, I'm authentic because I'm a bad bitch and I curse and I'm this and that, whatever. That's not, no.
I'm an authentic. Yeah.
For me, number one, I feel like obviously because I'm never going to achieve the kind of perfection that I want to, what has been most effective is finding a person that I can trust.
Oh, at work?
At work.
Oh, yeah.
That I can be myself, because I think that typically code switching is something that a lot of people of color do, but I think we all do it. We all do a form of code switching where I will turn it on depending on what the situation is. And I think that when I get to a place where I don't feel like I need to do it, I think that's when I'm being my most authentic self, where I can be because for me, and the current job, if I had just not gotten in management and stayed doing exactly what I love to do, I would have been just fine. The problem is now I have to take into consideration other people's stuff. You know, I think when you move up to management, middle, or wherever, you all of a sudden the code switching comes into play, and you have to be considerate of other people and all that good stuff.
Well, I like what Anke was saying about like boundaries at work. And so boundaries are in place, obviously. Like boundaries are protective, right? We put boundaries around things that need protection, right? That's what a boundary is, right? There's a thing on the other side of the boundary that needs to be protected. And so obviously, like when you're in certain environments, there are boundaries in order to keep like a workspace cohesive and flowing, right? And I have certainly had the experience where you're friends with someone at work and then those boundaries start to get blurred.
Oh God.
Right? And to me, and I've experienced this like recently. She doesn't listen to the podcast, but so I experienced recently where like I'm really good friends with someone who is an authority figure in my work context. And then we're friends until like she pulls rank. And then that feels very, it's kind of humiliating. It feels like infantilizing. And it's like, you know, there's like, it almost feels like an abuse of power because it's like, oh, it's okay if I act out of line or if we're like looser on our boundaries, but you get to determine when those boundaries are in place, right? And so it does get very tricky at work, right? And, then there's also kind of like, you can make a joke at work, but the second, like, say something goes sour with you, with someone else, and they can make they can use it against you.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's like, especially depending on how you feel about the person, because as to the authority situation, whenever you are upwardly kind of someone who is ambitious, and you may have a close friend or whatever that you work with who may not be interested in doing any, and then you take that higher position and then have to deal with. For me, it's always been that I'm such a Virgo.
We're back to that.
No, it's black or white. Like the way that, for me, and this is what has gotten me in trouble. My thinking is like, I try to think about like, okay, what do I need to do? What, as far as what's my responsibility, and there shouldn't be any gray areas. And that's where I get in trouble. Meaning like, the relationships aren't nuanced. I treat everybody the same way. Yeah. I'm kind of like non-thinking, non-feeling, kind of a computer.
You have such gentle eyes.
Oh my God. It's like, you wouldn't know that the way you come from me. I thought it's like,
I have a question about gray area.
Oh, let's hear it, Jordan.
When or at all do you disclose about your recovery?
Oh, that's interesting.
Ooh, good one. At work.
At work, yeah.
That depends.
Do you want to take that, Anke?
Yeah, go ahead, Anke.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on obviously the setting. For me, I work in healthcare, and some institutions are more conservative than others. And I obviously don't come out and say on my first day, "Hey, I'm in recovery," because I gotta get the vibe first. I want to feel how this is going to go down if I disclose that I'm in recovery. And usually what will happen is I will be there for a while. And if I feel comfortable with somebody, and if I feel, like a good intention from them, I may disclose to one person or maybe two people at work, just because, it feels right. There are other times where I've been in situations where I've disclosed. When I first got sober, I wore like the recovery badge on my shirt. Like I told everybody, and I'm sober now, and it didn't go over very well at all. It was not well received at work at all. I got looked down upon. I was judged for it, and this is back in the late 80s, early 90s, when it wasn't as accepted in the mainstream as it is now. So, right. But I am careful, because I think that there's still that bias, because especially in healthcare, we can get really judgy, especially about mental health issues, about substance use issues. So I have to tread lightly at work. But I have to, obviously I'm out now, and whoever was going to watch the podcast knows, but, I'm not ashamed of it now. I think before there might've been an element of that because of my internalized, whatever it was that was going on, like shame about being an addict or being in recovery. It's less that now. It's less of that now than it is like, how is this going to affect my relationships at work, and how is this going to go down moving forward? I don't know. I probably just kind of rambled, but
no, that's okay.
No, you're
I love your voice. It's like I could sleep on.
I know. It's like I have kind eyes and you have a kind voice. I love you.
Yeah, it's so kind.
So you know what? There was a moment during my interview for this current job that I had where I was talking and it came up. And they didn't ask about my recovery. Oh. Well, it didn't come up. They didn't talk about it, but I was just comfortable enough to talk about it. But I really feel like it is important to kind of tread lightly. Like, I think that not everybody deserves to have this piece of me. I mean, and I honestly believe that the people who need to know, all I have to do is to talk. All I have to do, we have a language. We have words that we use. We have,
We do.
and if it's necessary, then. But I think that's a piece that you never have to take into the workplace.
So
Well, but
Go
we
ahead.
do take ourselves into the workplace
Yeah.
and our recovery into the workplace.
Yeah.
Right. We have I like Anthony's word. We have a container, right?
Yeah.
In order to manage some of this stuff. And we have a program of living. And then, what gets dicey sometimes is when I forget that not everybody around me has that same operating system internally that I do.
right.
And sometimes I get disappointed, I get frustrated, right? Because I have that recovery 2.0 version inside me. And a lot of my friends that I hang out with, we have that sort of same operating system with a couple of different bugs here and there. We have one person may have an upgrade, but we're all sort of running the same juju. And at work, it's not like that. We have people that are not, that are not at all. They don't have any sort of like work philosophy or, there's maybe I've seen like lack of integrity, lots of virtue posturing and that kind of thing going on. And it's kind of cringy. I'm like, ooh. And then I have to remember that, I'm in a world where not everybody is going to have like, the same kind of moral code that comes along with being a person in recovery who's working a program, who's doing the right thing. What are you guys laughing at?
Our producer's yawning.
Oh my God.
Well, because he has
Sorry, Anka.
a really long day.
I know he has a really long day. It fucking kills me. It's not because of you, Anka. This is just Brandon.
So
Go ahead.
Thanks, Brandon.
Jordan, specifically, I think like.
Well, hold on. Let me jump on this
go
question.
ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what I wanted to say is kind of in the most general of terms, I think all disclosure should be empowering, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're disclosing at work and it's your that you're in recovery, or it's your HIV status, or it's your like if you have a disability. Like all disclosure should be empowering, and if disclosure is disempowering, then it really has kind of like no place, right? So that's kind of like my first thought. My second thought is that when it comes to like work, I don't think people. Let me move away from that, but I think a lot of people kind of neglect to acknowledge that we spend most of our time at work, like our waking life. I think it's something like 20% of our living life is spent at work, right? And there's a way in which, like, I think people, or maybe I should speak for myself, but I'll speak in general terms. I think that some people walk into work and they just kind of like deal with whatever's happening, like not intentionally, or like, do you want to see what I'm getting at here? Is that like work is like this one space where we actually, I think, should be very careful about, like, first off, how we're showing up in our relationships at work, how we are preparing ourselves to enter into a work environment, because it's such a big part of our life. Yeah. And there's so many different people that I know who like, they hate their jobs. And because they hate their jobs, like when they're off work, their lives are miserable, And so I feel like, at some point we should probably land on like, how do we make, like. I
don't know. It's like I have to think like, this is where I get my livelihood. And I don't want to create, like you said, a space or an environment that is not happy. And it's kind of like I was saying, it's like I was creating that. I talked about it a lot. Yeah. I was bringing my negativity in, and I was giving it to people who really didn't want it.
Yep, you do it here.
You know what? Or who couldn't appreciate it. Again, I have kind eyes, or at least that's how he shuts me up. So, yeah.
Oh, God, I love you. I love you so much. Did I cut you off?
I'm good.
So when you guys were just talking, I was thinking about that, how you were saying we spend most of our time at work. And if you're miserable at work, you're probably going to, bring that home to your home life.
Of course.
Are you familiar with the work of Mary Oliver? She's
the poet? Yeah, I know the poet.
She
Yeah,
writes amazing poems, and one of the lines in her poem that stands out for me as you guys were talking is, "What is it that you want to do with your one precious life?"
I have a fear.
It's such a loaded question, but if you're one precious life and company encompasses everything, that work is such a big part of that, right? And yeah, I mean, I do think life is too short to be that miserable at work.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, and then I'm thinking too, like there are people who are right now toiling at their job to put food on the table, to feed their families. They're dealing with abusive bosses. They're dealing with like horrible customers. And it makes me sad that we live in a society where that shit's tolerated, especially like we saw during the pandemic, how, you know, how people who were doing these essential jobs like that finally like came to light. Like these people are the backbone of they run shit, right? The people who deliver our food, who clean the bathrooms where we go in restaurants, and it's like this whole infrastructure. And those are the people that get like marginalized a lot, that they don't get respected, they don't get a fair wage. And it's just, you know, I don't know, I could go on, but it you know, work in America is very different than work in other countries, obviously. You know, this I grew up in Germany, and I have relatives there, and they laugh at how hard we work and how little vacation time we get, and our work-life balance is so screwed up, right? And I also think that there's this whole new generation that isn't putting up with shit, which I love. Like these younger workers, you know, that I have befriended and that I know and care about. They're showing up to work and they're not putting up with the crap that my generation put up with. And I love that because it's starting to change the workplace. But I do feel that there's still so much inequity going on, you know, between the wage gap now and like the society that we live in. And I mean, we see the effects of it whenever we go anywhere right now in Oakland or San Francisco. We see so many people living out on the street that have nowhere to live because of like these huge disparage, like these huge gaps in wages and in lifestyles and in class and culture and all of that. It just, yeah. Boy, did I go down a rabbit hole.
No, it's okay. Well, one of the things that saved me, I used to have this boss many years ago who openly disliked me. She was very open about disliking me. She would like talk with one of the supervisors about me with her door open and like loud enough for me to hear. Like she did not like me. Okay. And the thing that and if you have someone that you work with, especially if they're in a position of authority, they can make your life a living hell. That's just kind of like the nature of it. Yeah. And I take partial responsibility. I can talk about that in a second. But one of the things that saved me, I was actually at the Western Roundup Living Sober conference. I remember someone was talking about work, and someone said, we have a new employer, and that employer is God. Mm-hmm. Like that is who we work for, you know? And that was super grounding for me because I was like, what? Like, this isn't about her. You know what I mean? Like I try to bring the best parts of myself to work and in any situation that I'm in on my best days, you know? Uh-huh. And when I got so consumed with like how she was behaving and what her opinions were, it's like I lost sight of that, you know? And like to your point about different jobs, right? Like there was a time going back to like, you know, that example you gave. So when I was in my 20s, I felt like the way, and this was like shit that I learned from older folks, I was I went into this, my first professional gig, and I thought I have to outshine everyone, right? Which you don't make friends at work when you do shit like that, right? And I thought I was just doing what you're supposed to do. And in the end, like, I remember what you were talking about. I went to my therapist and I was like, why does everyone at work hate me? And she goes, because it's your fault. Like, you go into work and you make it a competition and you go out of your way to kind of like chum me up with like your bosses. And I thought like, no, I'm just doing what you're supposed to do. No, you know, like I was still drinking and using, to be clear. So so I look back at that situation and I was feeding my ego, number one, like number two, it didn't work. I still had like really shitty self-esteem. And so that's why I always felt like I had to up the ante. And, like in the end, I realized like, this doesn't mean anything. It was like my first professional gig. I had made more money than I'd ever made in my life. And I was terribly unhappy. Right. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I like where you're going with this, because I could relate to what you were saying too about that. And, and having a boss that doesn't like you,
Mm-hmm.
that can be the worst, right?
Yeah.
That can be the worst thing, because if you are somebody who puts their head down, who does their work, who's got, who does have a moral compass, and you're there and you know why you're there and you're doing a good job, and you have somebody who is in a position of authority who doesn't support you, that can feel really crappy.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have some experience with that. But the way I cope with it is I put my head down, I do my job, I get excellent, performance reviews. And that's what I look at. And I, because if you have a crappy boss, it can really take the focus off of why you are actually there. Right. Because it can, and it's hard to work in an environment where you're not getting supported.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is you're doing. I have, whatever it is. Right. And so again, like, I feel like there's a lot of people who are in that position right now as we speak, who have like, people who have come up through the ranks and become managers without any sort of, training to be a manager. And that's kind of how it is in our culture. There's a certain amount of sensitivity that needs to happen. There's a certain amount of like being in tune with the people who you are supervising. And I know from experience, I've been a manager. I know that if I care about people who report to me, if I ask questions about how they're doing, if I ask them how I can support them, I am going to get a lot more out of their day. They're going to be way more productive than if I'm going to have this sort of punitive approach, right? And that's like the simplest thing, but also the hardest thing, right? I think for people in management positions to understand that if you value your workforce, it's so simple. It's such a simple thing. If you value people, if you respect them, if you treat them with tolerance and kindness, you are going to get so much benefit from that. You're going to benefit, the company's going to benefit, as opposed to like these older, outdated systems. And that's what I mean about the young millennial workforce coming in and changing it up. I love it.
Yeah, 100%. We have a comment. Tom Lee writes, do you want to take that?
How does one navigate work-related social gatherings where upper management is hinting at one's present to represent the management team and suggesting participation in the drinking culture at work, all while you're in recovery?
Oh, very good, Tom Lee. Thank you for your comment and your question. I've always thought that if there is a work-related event, you are still at work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you are still at work. And can you put the comment back up? Because it sounded like it was like specifically about drinking at work to participate in the culture, represent the management team, and suggesting participation in the drinking culture at work, all while you're in recovery. I don't know. I feel like it feels really like,
I feel like that's a toxic workplace, because
like you have to drink in order to blend in.
I hear people talking about their types of like industries, like sales and whatever, but really it's like, I don't have to do anything, especially if I don't feel comfortable with it. And so,
you could also pretend.
Yeah, you can pretend.
You can like tonic water with lemon.
Yeah, I don't.
Tonic water and lemon.
I would understand if a person is frustrated and doesn't ever like kind of represent or show up, like, because there's a lot of things that I just don't do, but because I'm in a different position, I have to show up. And so I think that's it. It's like, if you show up, stay a little while and go, that should be enough, huh?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I've seen Louis at work in action, so I know you show up, Louis.
Yeah. I think the thing that's frustrating for me with work, and it's important to kind of be mindful, but I think I slip constantly, because my idea of good time at work is I I'm focused. I'm constantly like busy getting things done or what have you. And that would be fine, but I have other responsibilities. And to your point, Anka, about like not feeling supported, it's interesting because I think that we were essential workers doing like the shelter in place, and I think that there's some burnout and some indifference or whatever that hasn't kind of left. And so I think that that's probably a lot of the frustrations that I've been talking about is what's showing up, because I'm constantly trying to kind of recalibrate and figure out ways to kind of make this experience pleasurable, you know? And it's tough because I'm doing that and not, you know, I've had several conversations with the owner, upper management, and say, you know, this is what I need. This is what I need. And, or this is what I see happening. And it's like, they meet me halfway, but sometimes they don't get there, and it's frustrating. And it's like, I don't want to just throw my hands up and leave, but it's like, sometimes that's the answer.
Yeah. Yes. And that line from Marianne Williamson is coming back in the line where she says, if the train doesn't stop in your station, it's not your train. No. Pass early. That applies to not just relationships, but I think it applies to jobs too, to some degree. You know, some people just really want to fit themselves into fit a square peg into a round hole. And sometimes you got to cut your losses. I don't know.
Yeah, we have to start landing the plane, at least for the on-air portion. But you're reminding me of, and I've talked about this before, the atomic bomb meditation, where like this is something I learned like years ago. So the idea is like, if you were to find out that an atomic bomb was going to hit where you were in 5 minutes, right? How would that change the way you think about a situation? You know, like, would your values change? Would like the thing that's bothering you change? You know, like, would you, who are the first people you would think of? What are the things that you would want to do or wish you could have done? Right. And like, that is a much, like when that becomes like kind of the focus of the day, you know, that it's so much easier to kind of look past simple disagreements. Right. Like, cause I think that's one of the things that's fucked me up before is like, you're at work and you know, you're right about something. Right. And you want to push through with that. And it's like, sometimes you just really don't need to do that all the time, you know? And I think the other thing that really helps me with that is if I go back to this idea that like, you know, I have a different employer and the employer is God, and like, I'm doing something else at work, you know? So I think we need to start landing the plane. Anka, don't go anywhere because we keep recording after we turn the, but thank you to everyone who's commented, Ben.
Yes.
Benji.
The Castro Country Club. The Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help people change their lives by supporting personal growth.
Yes, and our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community opportunity and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us, at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
Yes, and tune in every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when we go live on our Castro Country Club Facebook and YouTube channels.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
The stream has ended.
It has ended. We're still recording, so don't say anything crazy.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay, good.
So Anka, at some point, did your light come on its own? I was looking at it, I was thinking, did I just see that?
What happened?
The light behind you. Did you turn that on while you were?
Yes, it automatically did. It's on a timer, and I forgot about it. I hope it wasn't too terrible.
No,
why do you have your light on a timer?
That's fancy.
I don't know. I don't know. Alexa asked me, do you want to set a timer to have your lights go on at a certain time? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then now when the sun goes down, the lights go up.
I love that.
So I fell out of the conversation at one point because I don't know exactly what you said, and it's not a problem that you said it, but all of a sudden I found myself feeling really insecure.
About what?
I don't know exactly what it was.
You want to look at my notes?
No, but I don't know what it was, but it was something that you said, and it was a joke or whatever. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm going to stop talking.
Oh, and I said, and you bring that negativity here.
Yeah, no, it's
and
not
you do
gonna,
it
and I
here.
was just
Oh
like,
no!
And I was just like, well, what the hell did that
You
bring
don't
up?
do. Yeah, you're not negative
No,
here.
well, I know that.
You're the
but it's
opposite
like,
of that.
I know that, but okay, so the reason why I'm talking about it is because it's like it's an opportunity for me for personal growth.
Oh.
Because I don't know why, like what I'm feeling had nothing to do with that. You know?
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, but honestly, sometimes, and I've talked. I think I've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like, oh God, man, is that imposter syndrome thing coming up? It's like,
Oh.
is what you really have to offer of value? You know, like when you said, oh my God, sometimes I just tune out and then forget you're still talking. And I'm like,
But I don't even mean that.
I know you don't.
Yeah, I don't even
But your
mean that.
words are piercing.
Oh, I think it's the tone of my voice. It's kind of monotonous.
It's the tone of your voice.
It is.
Yeah, but
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, don't apologize, because it's like, I think where I experience growth is you've seen me shut down.
Oh yeah.
I didn't shut down. Like,
Oh wow.
no, I didn't shut down. And they're I'm real good.
You know what's interesting about that? That I was helping at Western Roundup Living Sober, and someone made a joke at my expense, and I was fucking furious. Yeah. But I had to like keep it in. You know what I mean? And I was like, "What is going on here?" And then I was talking to somebody else, and they made a similar joke recently, and it happened again. And I was like, "What?" Like, I felt like I had to look at that.
Yeah.
I get it. I play too much.
No, you don't. No, I appreciate this, because it's like honestly, when I'm spiritually sound, it's like I'm on water off a duck's back, or I would have just like a pop.
Spiritually sound.
Yeah.
Anthony, you mentioned a couple of times there's that line in the book, we have a new employer.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the first time that like a bell went off in my head about that, because my dynamic at work was always to defer to the person in authority, like,
Mm-hmm.
and those, and some unhealthy sort of relational things were happening between like the authority figure and me. Like, I always thought that they were like above me, and that I had to, sort of suffer under their leadership or whatever it was. And then I was in this women's group, and somebody reminded me and said, there's that line in the book, we have a new employer. And that is really that's where your focus should be. And that's where, I don't know, I just got such relief from that, because it changed my dynamic with every supervisor moving forward, that I'm not going to give them all of that power. And it was a very difficult, like, for me, being in that power dynamic, but it was all like my own perception of what was happening versus the reality. You know what I mean? Because we bring all that stuff to work.
Yeah, you're reminding me of this sign, this like poster we used to have in elementary school. It was on the wall, and it said like, it doesn't matter, something along the lines of like, it doesn't matter what your job is, even if you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper there ever was.
Yeah.
Right. Like this idea that like there are no small jobs, you know what I mean? That like you can bring whatever integrity or like work ethic you have to whatever it is that you're doing. But I think the other thing I try to kind of come back down to is that like the material things, from like jobs to titles, like none of those things really matter as much as like what kind of relationships do you have, and like how are you contributing to like the betterment of other people's lives. Because as you know, like as they say, once you die, no one's like, oh my gosh, she had so much money. You know what I mean? It's never like, it was like, no, she was a good person. She did good things. You know, no one cares what the fuck you did.
Think about how they made you feel.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, I really feel like that it's important for me to give myself grace. And because I fall into patterns at work, and the key is that I find myself becoming aware, and I do whatever I need to do to get out of it. And so if it's every now and then reminding myself that I have a different employer and then acting accordingly, it's that I do it. But unfortunately, it's like, if I'm not careful, you know how back to a train analogy, I'm going to runaway train with my personality, my behavior, or whatever. And if I'm not careful, if I'm not mindful, then I will act on some of my worst character defects. And unfortunately, I have to be in so much pain or so much discomfort before like I acknowledge it and do something about it. Here recently, I have been doing a much better job. Like I haven't needed to come here and like, rah, rah. I mean, I still complain, but that's something to do. But I'm mindful about who I'm complaining to, because I don't think that everybody deserves that, number one, and can appreciate your humanity. I was going to make a comment going back to when to disclose. There's some people who don't know who will never be able to appreciate that. So, and they might hold your humanity against you. And so, yeah.
I had a boss. I fucking love her. She was such a great mentor. Her name is Hazel Wesson. She was an amazing mentor. And she said to me once, this is, I was a young professional, and she said, I was like, I want to bring my authentic self to relationships and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, not everyone can hold that for you. And you shouldn't expect everyone to hold that for you, And that was an eye opener. You know what I mean? And I feel like that was maybe like one of the first times I was hearing someone say, like, what you have to offer a relationship, that's a gift we kind of give people. And like, not everyone can hold that, it's like the expression pearls before swine.
Yeah, true. Or lipstick on a pig. No,
yeah.
I just like that.
You were reminding me, you were both reminding me, how did all this spit get on my notebook? You were reminding me you were reminding me of that line from the 12 and 12, which it says, it's like something like, great love and great suffering are our only disciplinarians. We need no others. It's like,
yeah,
like when we're learning things, regardless of what like the context is.
Absolutely.
Like,
and true ambition.
Like Louis was saying that he was in pain, right? Because of those character defects. And I think that for a lot of us, that's how we do learn, is through pain. It's a great teacher, and that gets our attention.
Yeah.
I wish we could all learn through like joy and sunshine and lollipops and roses, but that's not how character is built in a person, I don't think.
Yeah, my sponsor says smooth seas do not make a good sailor.
Correct.
I also wish that we could normalize being forgiven for not being perfect, meaning like, okay, now I'm realizing I need to change behavior. Let me change that behavior and not be held to some unrealistic standard or have you feel that not let me escape it,
Yeah. I feel like we're all bozos on a bus. You know what I mean? Like
we're pillars on a bus.
We're pillars on a bus. No one knows what the fuck they're doing. You know what I mean? Like no one knows what they're doing. I don't care what your job is. I don't care how much money you have or like access to no one knows what they're doing. Everyone wakes. No one does. No one. And at some point,
it evens the playing field, right?
What's that?
It evens the playing field.
Yeah.
Or maybe if we could just acknowledge that, like you're saying, of course no one knows, but no one's going to acknowledge.
Right. And I think that's the thing is like no one admits like, oh, when I go home I'm lonely or I'm confused or I don't know what's happening or like, one of the things I think about a lot is how like humans have not really changed. Like the same feelings humans had thousands of years ago are the same feelings we have now: anger, sadness, joy, jealousy, envy, like lust, blah 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 blah. Like humans we're not very unique, And we're not much smarter than they were like thousands of years ago either. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like we're all just so silly.
Are we?
You know what I mean? We're all just fucking clowns.
Whoa.
We are. We're just a bunch of clowns.
How about we have the potential to be clowns?
No, I think we're all just clowns. What I mean is like I'm not saying like okay, go home and like I'm not saying this in kind of like in a negative way. I'm saying like we're all clowns. You know what I mean? Like we're just a bunch of what is it like we're all children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're all feeling beings. I don't mean to be like hippy dippy in this way, but we're just all feeling beings, and we're all just kind of like clumsily kind of like going about our lives. And sometimes we're happy or we're sad. It's just not that serious. Mm-hmm. Not that serious. Nothing's not that serious.
Have
we talked about solution?
Yeah, I think we talked about solution plenty of times. And I think Brian is about to, not Brian, I think Bryn is about to check out.
I know. You see this popped up?
Oh, that's so cute.
I know, exactly.
It's a picture of me, Benji, and Lewis.
I know.
Nice.
Yeah, I think now that we're showing pictures on our phone, we're probably about done.
Yeah, we are. It's like, oh, man.
Oh, wait. Brandon's getting ready to hit the button. If you've listened this far, thank you for listening. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for tuning in. If you're a longtime listener, we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anke.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.